Welcome to Read Poems Every Day. In today's video, I'm going to try something new, which I hope to do in the future, and that is look at a poem that's new to me. I won't do a long form walkthrough of my entire process of reading a poem, maybe just a flash of where I am in the process of getting to know it. So today, this I came across this on Instagram. This is Poetry Daily on Instagram. Today's poet and poem is uh, Roni Blankenhorn's Mise. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. I went to the website of Poetry Daily to look at the poem myself. And I thought what we might do is just read the poem, and then I'll show you a little bit of the notes I've already made, and we'll call it a day there instead of having me walk through the whole process. In the future, I am planning maybe once a week, once every other week, of recording a long form video where I walk through the entire process of getting to know a poem with a poem I've never seen before. So that's a bit of a risk, but I'm hoping that uh, might be of interest, at least to me, or maybe a few people who stumble across it. So here's Blankenhorn's poem, Mise en Abîme. The poem appears in her collection Rooms for the Dead and the Not Yet, published last summer by Trio House Press. So do check that out. I might put a link in the description of this video for you to go pick that up. And do follow Poetry Daily on Instagram. And if you have some money, contribute a donation to keep that project alive and going. So here's the poem, Mise en Abîme. Every time I pick up a glass, I am afraid because addiction runs in my family, because I could not save Dad from it, and because while I am as stubborn as a fat little dog, I worry that one day I'll slip into a shape I can't shake off. My relationship to reality is already fraught. The hours I give to volcano podcasts and vampire TV shows prove that I am susceptible to disconnection. I've inherited other things: Dad's glossy hair, his rash-prone skin, his nasal cavity's dramatic reaction to cats. I remember lying side by side on his bed, the dark blue and cream floral comforter that felt cold to the touch. He was teaching me how to meditate, or more precisely, how to build a place in my mind I could retreat to. Imagine a pond, he said. Smooth the ripples out. And he counted until I slowed my breath. My heart beat. This is how you can pretend to be dead, he said, if you ever need to. So that's Mise en Abîme, a fascinating poem. So this poem's brand new to me. I just read it for the first time a few minutes ago, and I started my process of bean counting after reading it out loud. So that wasn't the first time I had read it out loud, but it's only the second or third time. Uh, and I thought I might share just a few things that I observed. None of them particularly groundbreaking, I don't think, but I hope it does illustrate how even just this sort of low stakes observations of pretty simple things helps you kind of, I've used this word in the past, interface with the poem in a pretty concrete and material way that sets you up to notice and make maybe more substantial observations about what the poem is expressing and what you might take away from it. So even if what I'm about to say might not seem deeply important to what the poem is at a more fundamental level up to, I think having a clear sense of these details is still very much worth it. So the poem has no stanza breaks. It's one relatively long lyric poem. Hello, Lila. My cat's just joined me for the first time. Let's see if I can get her on camera, but I don't think I can. So no stanza breaks. There are 22 lines. I have highlighted on the left margin at the beginning of every fifth line just to help me kind of keep track of those numbers. And then after I counted those things out, I just went through and recorded all the enjambments that I was noticing. All the enjambments that I was noticing. There are quite a few of them, as you can see. And about halfway through, I started wondering if this was even sort of worthwhile tracking. But then instead of doing that, I started wondering if there was a pattern to sort of the enjambment and end stop oscillation. And I noticed something interesting. I'm not sure if there's anything to really make of it yet. Um, that we kind of go from one enjambed line to two end stopped lines to two enjambed lines to two end stopped lines and sort of back and forth. But the last 11 lines are kind of clumped together in a six line chunk of enjambed lines and then a 5 line chunk of end stops. And you can sort of see that here. I'll highlight them. So starting in line 12, the next 5 lines after that, so 6 lines total, are all instances of enjambment, whereas the first 12 lines bounce back and forth, and then the last 5 lines all have end stops. So, or another way to put that, sort of hard pauses, two periods and then 3 commas in the lines between them. But even so, even in the case, even with that pattern, you also have a pretty high frequency of caesura. A caesura, at least according to a poetry handout I inherited from an excellent professor of mine in my PhD program years and years ago. A caesura is a strong phrasal pause within a line. You have several of those, and I've indicated them here. Lines 1, 5, 10, 11, 13, 14, 16, 17, 19, 21, 22. So there's even when, if you have a high frequency of enjambment, the poet has incorporated several sort of pauses, strong pauses into the lines themselves. So you have to keep very careful track of the commas in this poem. There's lots of them. There's very few lines that don't have punctuation at all. There are, for 22 though there are 22 lines, there's only, oh boy, 8, 9 periods in the poem, uh, or instances of periods. And one of those is an abbreviation or initialization abbreviation of television. Um, you have one instance of a colon that introduces or leads us into a list of things the speaker has inherited from her dad. Um, Quotation marks that indicate speech, but by someone else. Not even the you, not the speaker, but dad, sort of speaking to the speaker within the sort of frame of a memory. And then some apostrophes and hyphens there. Then tracking the pronouns, there is a heavy emphasis on I and my throughout the sort of first half, first 2/3 of the poem, before we get to the memory. Even though dad is referenced early on in the poem, it's really not until late in the poem that a frequency, the high frequency or just a frequency of third person pronouns is incorporated into the poem. And the only instance of a direct address is actually attributed to the father who's speaking at the end. Anyway, that's as far as I've gotten in getting to know this poem. My sense is at some point I'll have to reckon with the title of the poem, which names a kind of aesthetic figure of a copy of an image within an image, right? So you get that. I don't know if you've ever had someone sort of share their screen on Zoom, but they share the Zoom screen, and then it just kind of, you have this infinite sort of abyss effect that opens up on your computer screen. That's kind of a digital example, or a contemporary example of what this might look like. But of course, the history of painting, history of visual art, includes a lot of them. So I kind of wonder, thinking ahead to some later steps in getting to know this poem, that this is, the poet is using this as a figure for thinking about um, generational relationships, generational inheritance, um, patterns of similarity and difference, um, And I wonder to what degree the poet's also incorporating a sense of regress into the poem as well. But I'll have to figure that out later on down the line. Anyway, so that's bean counting with Roni Blankenhorn's Mise on Abim. See you tomorrow.